Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of General Discussions in Filmmaking. I was able to I was able to interview director Ben Hozie on his recent film Private Chat, which you can check out. You can even rent it on YouTube. I was able to do that, or you can check out his website, which I will link in the description below. Definitely check this movie out if you haven't, and hopefully after the interview you do want to check it out because there's some really cool things there that we talk about, and hopefully after you watch the film a lot of those pieces of the conversation click better. This is my first interview, so please be a little patient with the quality of it. I'm trying to improve it as these things go. I'm figuring this out, you know. But other than that, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Shot with where they're throwing away the trash and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you guys plan? Did you plan out whenever they were out? Or was that just like,
No, total coincidence. I mean,
oh man,
and what? Yeah, it's funny. We bumped into the dumpster guys like 3 or 4 different times during the shoot, so it became like this motif. Like, oh, if we see him, we would run. I mean, it's just like guerrilla filmmaking. So when we saw him, we'd run
yeah,
chase after him. Yeah.
I love that. That's what's up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole guerrilla filmmaking vibe. I could get the feel of that. I feel like there's like a lot of mixture of different things in there. And I think you talk about that, right? You want to like to kind of blend punk style with filmmaking. Could
Mhm.
you like elaborate on that by any chance? Like what kind of methods you went by?
Yeah. So I, as well as being a filmmaker, play in a band. Actually, that's how I mostly make my living. I mean, I sold my film, but my band makes or so far has been more successful. But so I come from that background where when you I don't know if you've played in bands before, but it's much more. Uh, it's there in my experience. It's different from the way film production works, where you hire someone and they're being hired to do a job and they'll do a specific job. So on a film set, I'm the grip or I'm the gaffer, I'm the script supervisor. I do my one thing, I do it really well, and pay me a fair daily rate or whatever. Whereas when you're in a band, the economics are a bit more ambiguous. So say you're a bass player in a band, you don't get paid to practice. You don't get paid to play a show for the most part. You don't really get paid to record unless you're like a hired gun. So I come from this background where in rock, or it's particularly punk rock, it's way more just everybody chips in what they can. And in my movies, because they're made for dirt cheap, a lot of that energy drags over. So it's like, if we're painting the set, doesn't matter what your position is on the set, grab a paintbrush and help us paint the walls. And everybody dips their hat in a bunch of things. So the actors will help cast. I operate with Private Chat. I operated the camera myself, so we had a gaffer, but I was operating the camera myself. Sometimes I would pass the camera off to someone else. It's much more. Um, there's all these rules and unions when you get around to serious film production, and those are there for good reasons. But one of the great things about making like really cheap homemade movies is you can kind of break those rules a little bit, and I think things can become a little bit more organic. You can steal a lot of shots, you can sneak into places, you can really get more intimate with the actors in a way that I don't think you can when there's hundreds of people crewing the movie.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Especially like those shots where you're out in the scene, it's just like people walking by and stuff.
yeah.
Like it's such a do you did that get you guys like really hyped on the scene, like when on the day of the shoot, going out there with the camera and stuff? Did you notice people looking at you, or was it really cool to just be kind of like in the shadows, kind of like, hey, we're pulling this off?
Yeah, I mean, we had a big rig. I was wearing like essentially like
Okay.
a cam vest thing, and it was a big camera. But honestly, like in New York, no one's really phased by anything. So yeah, no
Right.
one no one stopped us ever. I don't think. Or like maybe
Dude,
some
I love that.
like, hey, like is it, who's famous in this movie? Like
Right.
you know, but no one really, you know, even in New York, one thing that's cool is people don't really spike the lens much when they're walking
Okay.
by. They know, oh, okay, that, you know,
Yeah.
they
Kinda
know to
like,
be nonchalant. If they're gonna make the edit, they can't look in the camera.
yeah, that is the funniest, dude. We shot in a subway for our, my short film, and that's one thing we noticed. Like people would probably like edge their eyes towards the lens, but they wouldn't look away. They just want to make sure like everything looks good, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait, where do
how's
you
the
live? What subway was it?
subway? I live in LA, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, like there's all down here, you know, we have not the best like subway system. Like I feel like you guys just kind of goes around a little more. But is definitely like I feel like the vibe there a little with the subways and all that.
Yeah.
How's Bodega? You finished a new album?
Yeah, it's actually
Okay.
the first music video and like single and all that. Like the first like
Oh shoot, nice.
comes out Tuesday. So
Tuesday? Okay, I'll keep an eye out for sure, bro.
yeah, so
Anyone from That's what's up, dude.
yeah.
Anyone from like your past projects hopping on or
No, not really, but Nikki, who started the band with me, she's still a big part of it. I don't know if you
awesome.
remember, but she plays Emma in Private Chat, like
Yeah.
the quirky like performance art girl. So
Yeah.
she's got a bunch of songs on the new one. So
Oh, sweet. That's what's up. Nice.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
How are you along?
our studio here?
Oh, that's your studio? Oh,
I mean,
shoot.
it's not really a studio. It's more just where we demo stuff. But yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Dude, that's a nice setup. I feel with that. I feel that, you know, like just sleeping next to your equipment kind of vibe.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Hell yeah.
yeah. You never know when you'll get inspiration.
Yeah.
How far are you in the new movie? I don't know if I asked.
So I have like a script that's been pretty heavily worked a lot. I have the leads cast. I'm just trying to figure out when to do it because we're the band's going out on tour in March and we'll probably be gone most of next year. So I'm trying to think. I could probably shoot it like January, February. But I don't know. You know, I wouldn't be able to start the edit for a while. So I'm thinking maybe wait a year and shoot it then and then go right into the edit. But I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, it's all going to depend on the money situation. You know?
Right.
There's been some people come knocking since Private Chat who may not help out with investing, and you know, I don't know. It's all about all I can say right now.
Right. Yeah. It's playing the cards and writing it out and see what works. Is this one, is the scale, do you think is it like different, like bigger? Are you going more I don't want to like step too deep into your new stuff, you know?
No, it's
cool.
I want it to be you know, a slightly, you know, the next thing should always be bigger than the next thing. So I'm trying to scale it up a little bit from Private Chat, but I mean, I'm trying to do the movie for like $150,000. I'm not trying to make a blockbuster, you know. But you know, this one is gonna be more expansive. It's not it's such an intimate movie with like two people mostly talking on cams and stuff like that. I want to involve much more of the city, and it has more of an ensemble cast. But a lot of it does take place in one house. It's like yeah, so that'll be a way to cut costs. But there's 10 people that all live in the house, so I kind of want this feel of everybody living on top of each other.
Oh shoot, I like that.
Yeah.
That's what's up, dude. Do you feel like with like the pandemic and anything that changed the way you wrote it or the way that you're gonna approach it?
No, because I knew I wouldn't make it during the pandemic. I want to wait till it's over. The only way it would affect anything is if it would be a situation where I don't know, like everybody's got to be vaxxed to work on it. I don't even know if it's a situation where I'd ask people to wear a mask or whatever, because there's not going to be more than like 6 or 7 people on the crew. And it's probably going to be a lot of the people I hang out with anyway. So, no,
Okay.
it shouldn't affect it too much.
Sweet.
I hope not. I don't know, we'll see. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. That's it. How are you with like editing? Because I know that you did like a lot of editing for Annunciation, right? That became like your film school kind of, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, and your I like that whole thing because it really does become your film school. And you said you came up with like a whole bunch of different edits of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably had edited the film at least 50 different ways. It's funny when you make a feature film and then you aren't able to sell it. It's like I've made it at various points over the last like 6-7 years. I put it up for free on Vimeo. But what's cool about Vimeo is you can always replace the file with a different file essentially, and
Oh
it'll
shit.
keep all the stats and everything. So as if it's the same movie. So every 6 months I'll replace it with a new edit, and I don't know if anybody knows, and I try to keep that movie in circulation in New York. So like every 2 years, I think I'll book out 3 days at a theater and show it and kind of like promote it through word of mouth or like through friends of the music scene. And I'll show different cuts every time.
That's awesome, dude.
It was such a experimental shoot that there's like no right or wrong way to put together that footage. Also, it was like the first thing I ever made, so it's like I wouldn't say it's bad per se, but it's like it's narratively like loose in a way I would never make a film again. Like it has this like naivete about it where I wouldn't even say I was like breaking rules. I didn't even know what narrative rules were, but it's like kind of all over the place. And I think like the edit that I have now is I think I would live with that. And actually for the private chat, I actually just got a box of them. There's a private chat DVD, and I convinced them to put it as a bonus feature. So the
That is
edit,
awesome.
yeah. So the edit on that is, that'll probably be like the edit, but who knows? I don't know. I've said that like 20 times, and then like 2 years later, I'm like, I think I could do that better.
Did you want certain things to be found out by the audience, or did you want it to be like more of an open canvas?
I think I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, it's hard to talk about inspiration because there's always multiple vectors coming at you. So, when I get an idea for a thing, there's kind of the bigger philosophical overarching thing that you might be thinking about. So I knew, for example, I wanted to make a movie that would be somewhat about how the internet is affecting consciousness. Right around the same time, my band put out an album called Endless Scroll. That was a lot of the songs were kind of about the same mental state that spawned Private Chat of like, just for better or worse, phones are essentially an extension of our brain now. So what is that doing, and how's that affecting relationships and things like that? For the most part, I always want to make movies about relationships, couples, but also just interpersonal relationships. I thought, how would so there, I had that big idea. Then I knew I wanted to make kind of a genre movie. I knew I wanted to make something a little pulpy, and then I started to get the idea for doing a movie about a guy who stalks a cam girl, and then immediately I could picture certain scenes. I could picture certain colors, like the hot pink, the neon New York City night, Chinatown, that whole thing. And then a lot of times I get ideas for like set pieces and scenes before a plot necessarily. So I'm almost like, okay, I know I want to have him follow her in Chinatown. I know I want to have him break into her house. I know I want to end it with them going to a motel. What kind of story can I write that has all those scenes that I really want to have? So I almost work backwards that way.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't know, it's tricky because a lot of times when you're writing, you want the script to kind of like become so organic that it tells you what the next scene should be. and it can be bad if you're trying to like pigeonhole your previous ideas too much into it. But usually it'll work out, you know. Yeah, I wanted like to. I wanted to make a movie that was genuinely romantic. So I think some of the marketing material for Private Chat might lead people to think that it's like this gritty, nihilistic kind of dark movie, and certainly it is in some ways. But I wanted to play this trick where about like halfway through the movie, you think you're watching like a film noir or like a seedy thriller, sex thriller kind of thing, but then it turns almost into a romantic comedy, subtly, where you realize, oh, these characters like actually do have genuine feelings for each other, and the movie becomes kind of silly in a way. Like the stakes aren't so high. There are no guns. There's no like real violence in the movie or anything. I want to like kind of play a trick on the audience where they think they're about to experience one movie, but they experience another one, which you know, you can say whether it was successful or not. It's kind of hard to blend genres. I actually think you know, I think most of the success for this movie, it had a lot to do with just being lucky and getting Julia to be in it, the actress in it, because she was kind of having a big moment. But also I think it was like leaning into the genre elements. My first two features, you know, if you're not like a big cinema head and you don't want to see something experimental, and you know, most people when they want to watch movies, they want to see formulaic stories, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but they want to see genres. They either want to watch a Western, they want to watch a comedy, they want to watch a horror movie, they want something that really leans into a mode. So I think, you know, people went to see Private Jack because they thought it was leaning into a certain mode. It doesn't really, but it at least has enough of the signify. I think that's my one advice to indie filmmakers is at least present your movie like it's leaning into a mode, and you'll have a higher success rate of probably selling it. At least that's my experience. You know, you can do whatever you want with it as long as you at least have it superficially appear like it has the right signifiers. You know, you can make a crazy experimental Western, but if you have, you know, like a reel that you're showing to people and it has horses, hookers with hearts of gold, poker tables, saloons, you know, you'll get your funding. You know what I mean? Dude, I said maybe I should get a little more light so it's a little more.
Oh, for sure. Here we go. I did the same. That's funny. Congrats on launching the new. I saw the new music video.
Oh, thank you.
Which hype, awesome. I love the mask. Continuing that cool color. Yeah. That makes me lead to my next question, where in our last conversation we were talking about
well, I mean, it's hard to talk about inspiration because there's always multiple vectors coming at you. So, you know, when I get an idea for a thing, there's kind of the bigger philosophical overarching thing that you might be thinking about. So I knew, for example, I wanted to make a movie that would be somewhat about how the internet is affecting consciousness. Just for better or worse, phones are essentially an extension of our brain now. So what is that doing, and how's that affecting relationships and things like that? For the most part, I always want to make movies about relationships.
Like, do you remember like when you started like wanting to look into that? Was there a like an observation that you made, or certain films or pieces of media that you saw that like started like making you question those kind of things?
Yeah, I remember pretty well. So the first film I made, which was a very young person's film, if anybody wants to see it, was called Annunciations. My first feature. I shot it when I was 22, and you know, I had just come out of undergrad studying philosophy, so it's a very that's a good description of the person who made that movie. It's very theoretical in the sense that it's extremely abstract. I was more interested in the plasticity of the frame than I was necessarily the characters in the story. I was thinking like Antonioni or something. You know, this red person is not necessarily a person. That's a red line in the frame. You know, I had that kind of mentality going into it, and I'm very proud of the movie. and it has a certain naive charm to it. I mean, we shot on 16. I actually think the most interesting thing about the film was it overlapped with the Occupy Wall Street movement. So we went and mixed actual authentic documentary footage of Occupy with the fiction, and had some of the actors kind of integrate into the what was happening there in Zuccotti Park. So I think it has kind of historical value, and obviously it's sentimental for me. But for better or worse, I'll never make a film like that again. And one of the reasons is because probably about 2 years into making it, and it took me 3 years to get to the finished cut. I had a script, but I ended up abandoning most of the stuff in the script, and I was kind of working like how I know Godard used to, or maybe still does, where you come up with scenes the day of shooting, much more like how fine artists work. So most movies, because they're so industry based and they're so corporate, for lack of a better word, is we have this exact script, we have this exact target market we're trying to hit with this script, and 2 years of pre-production goes into planning, so we exactly do what the script is. I guess that's the Hitchcock model, really, where everything is so planned out in pre-production that there's almost zero creativity that happens during the actual filmmaking. Whereas I was entirely making the thing up as we went along, and that created a lot of hiccups. So I had to do a ton of reshoots, and I would also figure out interesting things. It's like a hyperlink movie, where those kind of movies that were in vogue about 10 years ago, where there's maybe 30 characters, and where hyperlink, because when you're on the internet and you're reading an article or something and you see a link and you click on that, that'll take you to another story. If you click on something there, it'll go to another story. So it's all these stories where you're kind of going down the rabbit hole of, okay, we took a ride with a taxi driver, and we think it's about these couples in the back seat, but then when they get out of the car, we follow the taxi driver now, and then et cetera. There's so many pretty good movies that do that, and because of that, we kept finding interesting connections between the whole cosmos of the film. So it took a while to edit, but I do remember. Sorry, this is a pretty long-winded answer, but I do remember maybe like 2 years into making that, thinking, oh, the most interesting thing for me as a filmmaker is working with actors. I learned that about myself, and I like watching people do petty things. I like one of my favorite themes is jealousies in relationships. I just like watching the messy interactions between people. And I also notice as a viewer of films, if I'm watching a very plotty movie, that's fine, but I really only care about it to the extent of which the people are involved. For example, like if I'm watching a disaster film and there's like a tornado coming, I don't really care. That's not in and of itself interesting to me. But if the tornado is affecting a group of people, and then it brings to the surface problems that they have with each other, then I'll probably enjoy the film. I don't know. I grew up with a lot of, for lack of a better word, family dysfunction. So I think maybe it's a byproduct of my childhood too, like watching people fight and make mistakes, but also finding that not necessarily dramatic or tragic, but kind of comic in a way. Maybe that's my brain's way of dealing with things, is finding. I think I find my favorite movies have a comic sensibility to them, in the sense where the camera itself is kind of laughing at the characters in a loving way, though, not like a condescending way, but they're like, wow, look at these people really screwing things up, and we've all been there, and there's a charm to that.
Wow, yeah, there's something so meta about the filmmaking process, because you're creating a reality, but sometimes there's influences from your own, and it's just, and everything in between, like the people who are just playing characters, but there's also links between people in real life, and the two sort of converge. Something interesting that you pointed out about hyperlinks, like this, the internet culture or internet structure mixed with our reality. That's such a cool idea, and I've seen you like experiment with that concept in a way that I feel is like super unique to you, which is probably going to lead to my next question. Is Ben, what's the deal with all these ATMs?
Oh, wow, good question. So for anyone who's seeing this and doesn't know, I have a thing for ATMs. I highlight them in all my movies with close-ups and try to plant as many ATMs throughout the narrative as possible. And the rock group I play in, Bodega, we also have used ATMs in our album art and music videos and lyrics and things like that. I find ATMs to be really interesting for a number of reasons. I think they're a great metaphor. I also think they're just beautiful. So there's the superficial reason. They're little science fiction type sculptures that you find throughout the world and the city and things like that. But one of the big themes of my work, especially my last movie and some of my music, is this idea of standing reserve, to use a term that's kind of a term from Heidegger, the philosopher. But basically, this idea that exploitation occurs not just in this sort of Marxist type level between different classes or things like that, but between everyone in your life. It's a really dark thought. So it's essentially this idea that you as a person are exploiting every single person in your life. So, so if I'm taking me for an example, it would be my girlfriend, my parents, every single person I meet, my coworkers, everyone, basically under capitalism, or maybe not, maybe just in general, depending on how cynical of a soul you are. You treat every single person in your life as what is it that you can do for me? Or can you give me information? Can you give me money? Can you give me resources? Can you make me feel good? Can you butter me up? Any of these kind of things. So I actually don't hold that viewpoint at all, but the character in my film has, and I think I have, when I was in my lowest, darkest, most depressed moments, have allowed my mind to go there. Like, wait a second, maybe these family members don't really care about me. They just are playing some kind of societal obligation, things like that. I think I think the ATM sort of crystallizes that sort of concept, because when you go to an ATM, in the most literal sense, you're exchanging data for money, which is kind of what happens in all these relationships. Like I said, that is not a viewpoint I currently hold, but I think it's pretty, it's a hard-hitting, tough thing to put out there in a work of art. To I think that's what, in some extent, that's what films and music is for, is to go to the places that the mind goes to that you definitely don't want to go to in day-to-day regular social life. Also in the film, I wanted there to be an arc, like a good narrative film really starts somewhere and goes somewhere else. So, or at least not all good films have to do that, but most good films do that. And certainly most American films do that. So in the beginning, there's a character, and the film seemingly upholds this nihilistic perspective, and the film shows you how it's essentially true. But then hopefully by the end, you realize, no, there's something really genuine happening with the relationship in the movie that debunks the theory. That's the idea, anyways.
That is so, dude. Thank you so much for elaborating. That's like I was super I didn't think about the the prevalence of it in your work until like I noticed it in private chat. I was like, wait a minute. And I looked at like your past couple albums, look at like music videos, like, yes, this is the one, like there's a consistent view. It's a vibe. I don't know what it is, but it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's not just like one thing I can specify, but it's definitely got that vibe. Do you speak like still on that kind of concept of data and internet and all that? Are you excited about any new formats or mediums right now? Like, what are your thoughts on content as a whole? Or not, that's super broad, but
Right. Are you referring to something like augmented reality or virtual reality or things like that?
Yeah, that's because I feel like film is, well, maybe not even just in VR and AR, but film and digital distribution of things is there's a weird moment right now. Like I feel like there's a weird transition moment. I think we're like hitting the bridge between physical and digital.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. We're at a crossroads moment. There's a part of me that is very afraid of VR. I personally, I mean, I've tried it a few times. I've done some of the games. I did a very superficial thing. You walk through a haunted house kind of thing, and I enjoyed it. But as soon as I took the helmet off, it took my brain like 10 minutes to readjust to reality, and I was kind of dizzy. So it was kind of unpleasant. So maybe I'm too old. I think maybe somebody that is 5 years old and does VR, they'll get used to it and their brains can accept that virtual reality. But I think for people over a certain age, I think it's going to be extremely disorienting and unpleasant because we're not used to it. So um, I don't know. I think there's great aesthetic potential to do something in VR, but I don't know. I don't want to seem like a purist or a curmudgeon because I know there were people that when cinema came out, cinema can never be an art form. The printed word and literature is where it's at, and the stage, and also same with recorded music. Of like, no one should be making records. This is mechanical. Only music should be performed live with no electrical amplification or anything like that. So I'm wary of being critical of these things. Although I will say that I don't think technology is neutral at all. People talk about technology, I find often as if it's this thing that just gets made and has no values latent within it. And whoever uses the technology can use it for good or bad. I find that to be blatantly untrue. There's an ideology built into virtual reality already. It's as if to say, come to this other world different from your own. There's already values laden with that. Like an obvious example I would say is something like the atom bomb, where you don't build the atom bomb with any neutral intent. It is a bomb. The purpose of a bomb is to blow up. So it's science is never not latent with values, and so most of these new technologies coming out under this late stage capitalism implicitly have those values within them. So I'm skeptical, but I'm open to seeing what happens. I think it's an interesting time for distribution. It's pretty cool that you can make a film for really cheap and distribute it yourself online. Although without publicity and without a big enough hook, you're not going to reach that many people. So it has its pros and cons. I don't know. It is a weird time. I don't like the word content because it implies something about the word feels insidious to me. It's as if it's just like crap to fill this empty space. It doesn't feel like a meaningful term at all. I came across this really great video. I'll send you the link actually, if you're curious, where David Bowie's being he's being interviewed about the internet. Have you seen this? In 1999.
Yeah.
And he says something like, okay, it was a cool thing to do in the 60s to join a rock band. But if I was, 20 years old in the 90s, and then he's talking like 1999, he goes, I would become a tech innovator or investor or whatever. And he says this with total sobriety. It's like, what? But, he does have a point. I think in 2021, what the entrepreneurial 20-year-old person would do, or even bohemian person would do, would be have a podcast or something like that. I read a chilling stat that more people listen to podcasts than recorded music. Chilling because I, of course, record music for a living. But people are lonely. They want to pretend like they're making friends with people, and podcasts can be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I for better or worse, I've decided I want to make movies the way they've been done. I think there's still a lot to be done within them. And I think if anyone's going to innovate the form in the way of using AR or VR, it's not going to be me, and I'm okay with that. James Joyce didn't need to invent a new medium to do Ulysses. There's still a lot of work to be done in film.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I'm really excited for where else we can go with film. Where else we can go with sticking to, because I like because I feel like since my reality, I guess, is filled with internet and like I kind of said, it's like a weird mixture between the two. This recent film that I've been working on, it's called 2002. It's on my bad if this panel is kind of feels like it's all over the place. I just thought I'd call it something like general conversation in filmmaking or something, just because like I feel like it would encompass
2002.
What's that?
Why 2002?
Oh, so that's like exactly the reason why like people would be like, why 2002? It's in an alternate kind of timeline. Things are in black and white, sci-fi. Tech is to the point where it's just essential. So it's like here's this thing. This is a Raspberry Pi. This is a $25 computer, but we call it Euclid. Because it's mathematician and all that. So these are like the people's personals. This is the kind of tech that they kind of have, and I kind of wanted to. It's pretty much just about artificial intelligence, but like I have a feeling that like artificial intelligence has already won, and it's kind of just like leading all of humanity to towards a path that's going to make it like a really fucked up version of AI. So I guess the film kind of shows you how like AI has already won, but here's a combination of perspective and how that perspective can be exploited. Like what would it be like to be a synthetic person with who understands that their perspective has been exploited? What would you do in that scenario? So I'm pretty hyped to release it.
That's what
What's
AI
that?
thinks. The AI comes to terms with that, their consciousness, kind
of. So like the AI pretty much you see how it has its hands in three tiers of the industrial system. The industry is the industrial complex is called MRK, but so there's the architect, which is it's only that person can only communicate with the AI or the algorithm or God, and it's kind of like you ever see Tron?
I've never seen Tron. No.
For sure.
You mean the '80s movie?
Yeah. There's this thing called master control program, which kind of like runs the whole tower. Similar to that, this organization is getting ready for the 2.0 update, which is it's connected to servers all around the world, and it's the first of its kind in that era to create an advanced information society. What would that look like in this alternate reality? Alternate reality. And so they're hyping things up, and they on top of that, they also have their hands in the police agency. It's not like a police department anymore. Now it's a police agency, and they're starting to create these synthetic units, which replacing cops and all that. And that's one of those synthetic units is the individual that we're seeing this whole lens through.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I can send you like the trailer sometime. And just,
Please.
I'm so hyped. But I kind of like went off the rails on that because I got really excited about 2002. But one of the
I love that you call it 2002 because it's like right after 2001.
Did you ever deal with? Because I know you said like you would build things on the spot when shooting. Were there moments where you're like, I can't come up with this idea? Like, were there any moments where you kind of had, I guess, not writer's block, but like there's a little bit of like hindrance?
No, because I don't know, when you have the gun to your head and you got 4 or 5 people waiting to figure out what to do, you'll come up with something. I believe it. I think I have this very pragmatic view of the creative process that doesn't really, every once in a while you'll get a great idea from you don't even know where it came from. They'll pop in your head and it feels like divine inspiration. That's 1 out of 100 times I found. I truly believe in just, if you wake up every day and you set time to write or brainstorm, things will come to you. I think, the classic perspiration leads inspiration kind of idea. I will say we shot so many things that I came up with at the moment that were terrible and cut. But that's okay. That's part of the process. I've never had a situation where it's like, I don't know what to do. You kind of fake it until you make it and just come up with something. It's all that. I mean, film is easy like that. You just get, if you get 2 people in the room, it's not that hard to get them to do something interesting.
Totally feel that. It's super. It can be super modular.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any right way either. A lot of it happens by chance, I think, films, because especially the people that you cast and the people that you collaborate with, the amount of decisions that are going to go into 10 seconds of a film. There's so many decisions that have to be made, and a lot of them I think happen just because time is ticking and you say A, B, or C. Okay, C, boom, next. So one of my old philosophy professors used to say, Ben, the reason I don't believe in free will is because I always have this experience where I go to a restaurant and I have maybe 3 dishes in mind, and I'm not, I'm kind of weighing the pros and cons of each of them. And then as soon as the waiter comes and says, which one do you want? You go, that one. Because I believe all decisions are made that way. I think so too, actually. I mean, philosophically, I don't think I believe in free will at all. I mean, you can't live your life that way. But I think films get made by you pushing a ball off the cliff, and the director or the financiers or whatever say, okay, the ball's rolling down the cliff, and it just gathers moss, and eventually it stops rolling. And I think a lot of what the thing becomes is not really up to you. I mean, it is. Hopefully it is, but I don't know. There's a difference between how I treat filmmaking practically in terms of how I think it actually happens. But
No, dude, yeah, like I really appreciate that input. It definitely puts a lot of things into perspective. A lot of because I've observed that too. Like it's like making a promise, like a public promise, like you're gonna put something out, and it's like, oh shit, you gotta follow through on it, dude.
Self-deadlines. That's one of the great things about maybe being in a film school, which I've never done, but I can see it being really good to be like, you have to do this film and you got a month. You know what I mean? I have a lot of friends who made some pretty cool stuff in film school, and they kind of stopped making as much work when they got to school, or maybe they stopped filmmaking entirely. And it's maybe because it's hard to decide on a thing when there's nobody telling you. That's one of the hardest things about being an artist, I think, is because you're self-employed and you have to be disciplined enough to make your own schedule and not just, artists tend to be chaotic people that aren't very good at organizing. So.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that. I literally have like 3 planners where it's just like, yeah, this input like definitely just gives I think it's gonna give a really cool reality check for peeps at least. Gave me a reality check on a couple of things, but I gotta like thank you, man, because like this is the kind of stuff that like you either experience firsthand or you don't. But other than that, man, do you have any like other music videos popping up soon?
Yeah, they probably won't be out until probably a month or so from now, but I'll keep you updated.
Cool.
Yeah,
Awesome, dude.
2002. Send me the trailer and definitely send me the
Yeah, man. Definitely, man. I will.